It's the new Performance Model Y, and this car, unlike its previous version, is quite a bit different than the regular model. Tesla has been notorious for changing things up in their lineup, and with the refresh Model Y, we started to see a lot of new changes that we hadn't seen before. Specifically, we have the recent launch of the standard Model Y, which comes with less frills, less finishes, and a little bit less range. And then we have the premium models that come with everything. The Performance Model Y in the past has just been a regular, what we would consider today a premium Model Y, with a little bit more horsepower, bigger wheels, and a lip spoiler on the back. That is no longer the case. And today we're going to dive into those details because this SUV is unlike any other on the road. Now, when it comes to the numbers on this car, there's not a whole lot different than it was previously. Of course, most of the enhancements are the look of the car, but there's also underneath all those body panels quite a bit of fine tuning that's happened. The experience in this car, much like the premium Model Y refresh, is quite a jump from the legacy version of the Model Y. And the Performance Model Y, it takes all of that and it scrambles it up, unlike previously. So now we don't just have the same car with bigger wheels and maybe a spoiler. We actually have a lot that is different. Now, that comes at a price, and compared to the premium all-wheel drive Model Y, this is $8,500 increase, or $57,500. That is quite a bit of money, but it may not be quite as much as you might be thinking. And if you're trying to convince your spouse that you need the performance version, stick around because I've got the formula for you to show you that this is actually a pretty awesome deal. The outgoing Model Y came in at about 280 miles of range. This one now comes at 306 miles of range. Interestingly enough, when equipped with the 20-inch wheels, the Long Range all-wheel drive Model Y has 303 miles of range, so an inch smaller wheel, and this thing gets even more range than that. The reason it's different is because this car sports a new battery pack. They've made some changes, some enhancements to the 2170 battery cell with Panasonic in the Performance Model Y, and Tesla has allegedly said this will be rolling out across the other models of Model Y and 3 in the future, but this gives us a little bit more density, a little bit more usable out of the pack. So what was an 82 kilowatt hour pack with, say, 78 kilowatt hours usable, this new one is something more like 84 kilowatt hours and 81 kilowatt hours usable. So that extra density gives you more range. On top of that, they've obviously enhanced a lot of the aero, as they did with the premium version, and all that put together gives you a real world over 300 miles of range, which is pretty stellar. Now, don't get too excited. Those batteries don't change anything else. It doesn't give you additional charging speed or any enhancements there, at least yet, but it does give us that extra range, and it does allow us to get the performance out of this car for a longer period of time. And that is because the internals of this battery are made to be able to handle the heat of continuous use over and over without degrading performance. That's pretty cool. Now, it does top out at 155 miles, 0 to 60 in 3.3 seconds. And in my own independent testing somewhere in Mexico, I was only able to get the best at 3.59 seconds. Now, it's important to note, Tesla reports their 0 to 60 with a 1-foot rollout. This is a true 0 to 60 from stop to go. And I wasn't quite able to replicate that. But the thing is, it's quite a bit of performance. This is insane. You will be hard pressed to find this kind of performance in an SUV of any kind in the entire world. And that experience is something you just have to feel for yourself. It's a little bit different in this Model Y. This one is interesting because as soon as you accelerate, it almost feels like it's holding back until it gets moving, and then it starts to push hard, and then you can start to feel it in your gut. That's when the G-forces start to hit after 10, 15, 20 miles an hour, when it really starts to accelerate hard. So there's a lot of stuff going on with traction control, and I tried this in multiple ways with limited traction control, which is the really only option now. You can't turn all of it off. Track mode is not an option in this car. That's something we're going to have to look to Enhance Auto for. I'm sure that their commander will be able to enable some of these features that it doesn't natively do any longer. Now, how important is track mode? It turns out most people that own a Model Y, whether it's performance or not, they're families and they don't track their car. They need this car to take them to and from work, take the kids to school, take the kids to practice, all those things that families do, and less time on the weekends at the track because they're busy with other activities. That is where the Model 3 fits the bill. There's still a lot of performance packed into that thing and a lot of access to those capabilities, where this car is going to give you a good amount of power, but it's not going to give you the same type of things that you would hope to have on the track. And that's where this thing separates itself from the Model 3 performance. Basically, what Tesla has done with the performance Model Y is they've taken the incredible enhancements, the things that made the refreshed Model Y really awesome. They've put it in here. They've given you more power with true new motors, a rear permanent magnet and a front induction motor, something like 550 horsepower. That 0 to 60 in 3.3 seconds, as I said. They give you these 21-inch racted wheels. There's a new front and rear bumper that separate it from the standard or the premium version. Carbon fiber spoiler on the back, performance seats, which I'll get into later. Carbon fiber accents on the inside, 16-inch screen versus 15.4-inch screen, which we'll talk about that in a moment. A beefed up suspension, which is very clear in this car. It does sit about half an inch lower than the premium Model Y long range all-wheel drive, but it does have vehicle to load, which is pretty cool. And it actually comes with the adapter you need to plug in 120 volt accessories. Up to 20 amps can be pulled from the charge port natively, which is cool, but apparently PowerShare will be coming soon, meaning you can plug this car into your house and run it as backup, which is really awesome. Of course, this has launched with hardware 4. There is no hardware 5 yet, and unfortunately, Elon continues to talk about hardware 5, which has put people on the back burner waiting to make a purchase, but we have no line of sight when that's coming. Version 14 of FSD, which is out now, not active on this particular car, will be active when you take delivery of this. So if you get full self-driving, you'll have the best that it's available today. And V14 is really, really good. It also unlocks a few different modes. Launch mode will allow you to accelerate from 0 to 60 at the maximum power possible, giving you the best start versus just launching it from the accelerator. Plus, you have insane mode, which you can keep on and have maximum power whenever you want it. That's obviously a lot of fun, because when you're at the light and that Mustang starts making those stupid noises to show everybody how slow his car is, it's nice to know you can just go and embarrass him. But it also has this adaptive suspension, and this is one of the key benefits of the refresh performance Model Y. Previously, the Model Y was the same as the regular Model Y, with a very stiff suspension, big wheels, a small sidewell, those types of things. And it gave her a very unpleasant ride on a day-to-day basis. And Tesla certainly received plenty of that feedback. So Tesla has taken a look at that. They have updated the suspension to give you good enough performance to have a lot of fun, but you're not taking it to the track. And that means they can give you a stiffer suspension, stronger, beefier components, but still have this adaptive system, an electronically adaptive system that's constantly measuring all 4 corners and giving the proper spring rate everywhere along the road, meaning on a day-to-day basis, it's a lot more comfortable. And when you want it to be more sporty, the suspension will tighten up a bit and you can take those corners a lot harder, a lot faster, and have some fun. Put it right back into regular, and your wife will know none the different. Now, since it is the same shell as the regular or premium Model Y, that means it still packs all the same features and conveniences that were designed for families. This thing seats 5 comfortably, and it has a screen in the rear to keep the rear occupants entertained, has tons of space in the cargo, and these rear seats fold much more flat than they did previously, and they're electronic also. There's so much space in here. In fact, you can fit large strollers, all your suitcases, all the stuff you need to bring to gym practice, and have no problems. So this continues to be the best-selling car in the world, and that is because it is the ultimate family car. Add in a performance badge to this, and you've just unlocked one heck of a beast that's also perfect for your family. This truly is a family or an adventurer's car. If you're traveling with bikes or with all of your family's belongings, that is what this car is for. And that is where Tesla focused when making the performance model. They still wanted to give you all those conveniences, but still give you the feeling of true adrenaline with acceleration and performance and power. And this thing certainly packs that punch. Now, I want to talk about this screen for a minute, because at first glance, when you're driving this, you're not going to notice anything different about it. It is 16 inches versus 15.4, and you can kind of tell some differences around the edges, but it feels, looks, and acts exactly the same as the previous one or the one that's in every other car. And the difference really comes at nighttime. And that's where the additional pixels that are in this screen start to show what they're actually doing. I would imagine this 16-inch screen is eventually going to make its way through the rest of the Model Ys and 3s. But for now, the performance is the only way to get it. And just note you're not missing anything necessarily if you don't have it. Now, on the whole, there's a lot of things in the refreshed Model Y that are also in the performance version that enhance the sound performance. So like the suspension we just talked about, it's almost as smooth as the premium, but not quite. And it's almost as quiet as the premium, but just not quite. And that's more likely due to the tires than anything else, because all the soundproofing materials should be the same in this car as they are in the premium model. So a little bit of a difference in the suspension feel when it's in standard mode. And that all comes when you're hitting a rough road. That's when you'll start to notice it, and you'll hear the thud, thud, thud happening more on those types of surfaces. But on generally average roads, it's pretty comfortable, and it's certainly light years ahead of what the previous performance Model Y was. This truly is a much better, much more comfortable daily experience for families. And certainly the performance, it's going to be hard pressed to find a car that's going to line up next to you and beat this. And remember, after you embarrass them, you then get to go to soccer practice with your kids and pick up some milk on the way home. This thing, at under $60,000, there's not another SUV on the road that can touch what this thing can do performance-wise, and it continues to highlight where Tesla is so far ahead from everybody else. They're able to put a package like this together at a price like that, and it's basically breaking the mold of what's possible. Now, do note, because the performance is just now launching, there are no specials. So 2.99 for 72 months on the premium all-wheel drive is not available on this. You also cannot lease this car. In fact, you can only lease the rear-wheel drive premium and the all-wheel drive premium as it sits right now. So there are some other costs to keep in mind. And unlike the previous one where you couldn't even tell the difference between the two cars, this one stands out straight from the factory, and that is exactly what people have been asking for, and they wanted it, at least in the Model Y, to be comfortable on a day-to-day basis. So, is this your track day dominant car? No, that is the Performance Model 3. Is this good enough to show up at the track, but also comfortable every day as you're going to and from all the places you go? Absolutely. This is the way to go. I argue this car is probably the best value on the market today when you factor in performance, price, range, full self-driving. There's nothing that can touch this thing for under $60,000, especially now. So if you're on the fence about the Performance Model Y, I think it's a no-brainer. I would actually, for the first time ever, push you over and say the Performance Model Y is worth the extra money. I was not usually in that camp with the previous model because the sacrifices were so big to go to that, especially with an already subpar, not that comfortable suspension on the previous one. Now you don't have to sacrifice that much to get into this car. You still get the things that are great about the premium, but you also have the ability to accelerate like nothing else. And that is a lot of fun. Plus, on the inside, these seats are really awesome. The bottom is not nearly as aggressive. It's very similar to the seat bottom in the premium all-wheel drive, but it's really the back of the seat that's a little bit more aggressive, and it's not too tight, and it's very comfortable. I really actually enjoy it. For me personally, adding in the cooled seats, these seats are the best seats. I would want these seats in my car if I could have them. In fact, I'm kicking myself because I really want this Performance Model Y. It is just that good. It is an awesome car. So with that, I hope that you enjoyed today's video. I can't wait to catch you on the next one.